The original Pikmin is a fantastic game. Great visuals, really well done soundtrack, a nice adventure length making it easy to replay, and most importantly, it's a ton of fun. And as I said in my review for it, I was really late to the whole Pikmin party. It wasn't until 2009 when the original game hit the Wii that I jumped on board. And after that, I just said to myself, awesome! Now I just gotta wait a little while longer before Pikmin 2 hits the Wii too. The controls were so good with this Wii version, I didn't even want to think about getting the GameCube version. I mean, Japan, Europe, and even Australia got it. We're gonna get it soon, right? 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 Yeah. Was saying that for a good solid 3 years. For another one of Nintendo of America's random decisions that make no sense, they decided to not bring out Pikmin 2 New Play Control to America. Until one day, in an issue of Nintendo Power, they confirmed that, oh yeah, it's actually coming out next month, and it's only going to be $20. Oh! Okay! So after regaining consciousness from my momentary freakout, and some extra time to fan myself off, I finally picked up Pikmin 2 on the Wii, weird Nintendo Selects box art and all, and I was insanely excited. All I knew beforehand was that a lot of people said it was actually better than the first game. Definitely something that's hard to believe, but how is the game actually? Let's jump right in and see if the game is ripe for the picking. Ugh, man, who writes these jokes? Whoever he is, he's fired. I can't work like this. The story takes place right after the events of the first game. After being stranded on an unknown planet with the option to either quickly repair his ship or die, Captain Olimar finally comes home to his planet of Hocotate where the business he works for is actually going bankrupt and has to sell off all of its assets, including the ship you just risked your life to repair. You know, good. But as it turns out, the earthly materials that Olimar picked up, like a bottle cap, are actually worth quite a lot in Hocotate bucks. And after the Hocotate Fright president is done having his eyes bulge out of his head, he realizes that that is the best way to get out of debt. Send Olimar and his new shipmate Louie back to the planet of the Pikmin and bring back a bunch of treasure to repay the debt. And if you think about it, not only is Olimar a play on the name Mario, now we can throw Louie into the mix. Frickin' genius. Now just wait, Year of Louie is coming. Watch out! Now in the grand scheme of things, you're actually going to pay off your debt about a third of the way throughout the entire game. But the president thinks, hey, there's plenty more stuff down there. Let's just get filthy stinkin' rich. There's just one little problem there. You kinda lose Louie on the way back. I'm still pretty baffled as to how, but now the president decides to get his hands dirty and join Olimar instead, this time to rescue Louie. Seriously, how did Olimar forget him in the first place? There's a second pod on the ship. I have to imagine it went something like, hey Louie, you ready to go? Alright, cool, glad to hear, let's go. Clearly, the best employee. And I know, some people are gonna call me out for spoiling that. But seriously, you spend like half the game with the president, who controls absolutely no differently than Louie does, so I think you'll be okay. Just saying. Now the basic idea for the gameplay is pretty much the same as before. This time, with now 2 captains, you take an army of up to 100 Pikmin out to the field and you can fill that group with whatever combination of Pikmin types that you want. There's the returning strong and fire resistant reds, the high flying and now electrical resistant yellows, and the water resistant blues. And an interesting change there, yellows can no longer pick up bomb rocks to use and throw. It's not necessarily missed because to be fair, it was kind of tacked on in the first game, but it's still a weird change regardless. And then there are 2 brand new types, the really heavy but really slow purple Pikmin that also have the strength of 10 when carrying things, and the poisonous and super fast white Pikmin. And the best part is, these 2 do not feel like an afterthought at all. Like the white Pikmin can dig up underground treasure, and the purple Pikmin are pretty much just always essential. They can squish the small enemies and stun the big ones, making them really awesome for boss battles. And then there's the inclusion of 2 special sprays that you can get by finding blobs of gel or bringing 10 berries back to your ship. The Ultra Spicy Spray superpowers your Pikmin, giving them super speed and super strength, and the Ultra Bitter Spray can freeze a good majority of the enemies in stone, making it insanely easy to take down a lot of the tougher enemies, and there are going to be plenty of times where you will want to take advantage of both. Trust me on that one. And then the only core change in the game control is, as I said before, using 2 captains now instead of just 1. So now you can basically have a group of Pikmin on both sides of the map and get multiple things done at the same time, which is frickin' awesome, and definitely eliminates a good portion of the whole sitting around and doing nothing thing. That's still there, kinda, but nowhere near as much. Now, if there were nothing else added to the game, it would just feel like a kind of upgraded Pikmin 1. But this time around, the big new addition is the inclusion of caves in each of the 4 main areas. These caves are basically just segments of floors filled with more treasure, tougher enemies, and big boss battles. And while each floor has the same number of enemies and treasures in them, the layouts are actually all randomly generated. At this point, the game is basically a dungeon crawler. Each cave has its own unique traps and hazards going for them, and luckily, you can always go in, get a feel of what to expect, and then jump out every couple floors or so, and you can get a better idea of what to do and prepare yourself. Because a good majority of the bosses certainly don't play around. Oh dear God. Now if you look back, you can pretty much take out all the bosses from the first game with properly implemented brute force. That will not work here. Learning the strategies to how to take down these bosses is really crucial, especially since losing a single Pikmin in these caves is almost reason enough to restart and give the floor another shot. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Lose one guy, do everything over again. Welcome to Pikmin. Also, interestingly enough, these caves are the only place you can get the purple and white Pikmin. They don't have onions like the other ones do in the overworld. So while you can gather items for the main 3 inside overworlds, only by sacrificing Pikmin in either the purple or white flowers underground will get you more for your army. And the thing is, since you spend a majority of your game in these caves, having them limited to them is not really that big of an issue. And speaking of, yeah, just about 2/3 of the game is spent in the caves. But the cool thing is, the time doesn't progress while you're in them. Each in-game day still takes about 13 to 14 minutes or so while you're outside, but you can take as much time as you want while you're underground. Sounds nice, right? The thing is, that does not alleviate the stress at all. Instead, the stress of finishing up in a timely manner is replaced with the stress of pure terror at times. Yeah, this game's pretty hardcore. Okay, so now time for the negatives, and I'll be honest with you, not really all that much I can say. The only thing I can actually think of are the caves themselves. Kinda. A lot of the joy from the first game was exploring and mastering the different levels, and while you still have that here with the 4 main areas, the caves don't provide the same level of joy since you're just navigating through a series of hallways for the most part. It can also be considered just padding for the game too, forcing the game to be longer, which is true. It takes about 20 or maybe even 30 hours to complete Pikmin 2 as opposed to the first game's like 6 or so hours, so there's definitely not as much replay value in the main adventure. But all that being said though, navigating through the caves is still really fun and incredibly addicting. This is easily one of the games that has that whole one more level mentality. It really is hard to stop playing at times. Though I will say that the caves could definitely have some more interesting themes going for them. Many of them look really similar to each other, and I bet you guys can't even tell which cave I'm in by the footage you're watching. But to sort of counter that, some of the caves do have specific traits to them, like the Emergence Cave where you find the first purple Pikmin, the Hole of Heroes which basically acts like a boss rush of sorts, and the Glutton's Kitchen which is run by these adorable little bread bugs, which seriously are just bugs made out of bread. Simply amazing. And then there's this prick in Submerged Castle. Oh man, the Water Wraith is the thing that nightmares are made out of. He just shows up every once in a while in the cave if you're taking too long, and he just starts to follow you and roll around, able to take out all of your Pikmin in one shot. Wait, what's that? This game is a strategy game? Nah, I think survival horror more so fits the bill, don't you? But now I can talk about the positives. Long story short, everything else about the game is fantastic. And now, short story long. One really big positive this time around is that the Pikmin are a lot easier to control. Everything just feels snappier and more fluid, and having the ability to divide your army into a group of 2 for each captain is excellent. The Pikmin are also a lot more intelligent now, aka, they don't trip. Thank you. Jeez. And graphically, I think the game looks great, despite being a GameCube port. The 4 main levels, along with the few themes that the caves have, are a lot more diverse than what the first game had, and the sense of scale is better implemented here thanks to many of the treasures you pick up actually being real-world items. Like the very first treasure that you pick up is a Duracell battery. That's really freaking cool! And then also like before, the soundtrack is top-notch, with the memorable ambiance of the overworld music, along with the, quite frankly, pretty odd music for the caves. And while there may not be that much replay value in the main adventure, there's still a good amount of extras to dive into. There's a cool little gallery for all the treasures that you pick up, as well as a full enemy bestiary, really giving you the chance to see how different Olimar and Louis operate. Bodily excretions of a highly flammable waxy substance interact with the cell structure of the okay, we get it, Olimar, you're smart. No stove, no problem. The sizzling beast practically cooks itself. Haha, you get it? Cause he's on fire? More like, Louis is on fire with all the snappy wordplay. Ha 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 ha. And lastly, of course, there's actually 2 entirely new modes outside of the adventure. There's the challenge mode, where this time around, you're given a bunch of new mini caves to go through with a certain amount of Pikmin, and are simply asked with completing them in a certain time limit. Which I personally find a lot more interesting than the first game's challenge mode, which was just, here's a day's time limit, and grind. And then if you want, you can even have a buddy join you as well. Not only that, but there's also a battle mode too, where you and your friend race to get a certain number of marbles back to your base, with the ability to, quite frequently, screw over your opponent. Things can get pretty nuts, so if you're fine with the absolute craziness that this mode offers, it is a ton of fun, and just another positive to add to this game's checklist. So Pikmin 2, overall, is just another amazing game, currently leaving the series track record to 2 amazing games. It's still addictive, charming, colorful, and most importantly, a ton of fun. So like before, whether or not you pick it up for the GameCube or Wii, it's worth adventuring through. And I didn't mention anything different with the Wii version this time around, cause, well, there really isn't any. The pointer controls and widescreen is all you get, and honestly, that's all I need. And as far as which of the 2 games I think is better, you know, that's actually kinda hard to say. They're both really good for their own reasons, but I would actually give the edge to Pikmin 1. I personally just prefer the shorter and more replayable adventure, but that's just me. But that finally leaves us to the long-awaited and highly anticipated sequel, Pikmin 3. It is going to be in my hands so soon, and you know I'm going to review it, so stay tuned. Now, I know you guys are probably expecting me to end off by offering a group of 100 Pikmin like last time, but nah, I'm not going to do that again. Although, I don't think the Empress Bulblax minds. Wait for it. Oh yeah, there they go. They're all getting squished. You missed 8. Alright, yeah, you got them. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, there's something just so satisfying about, is there, like, seriously just one, you're not gonna shake it off and kill that one too, you're just gonna let, are you serious? Excuse me?